Welcome to the Successful Life Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Berrier. I'm here with my man, Ted Fox. What's up, brother?
You know what? I am today. Good. It's a good day.
It's a good day. It's always a good day to have a good day, isn't it?
Yeah, I went to a concert last night with my family. Just a Canadian band that anybody outside of Canada probably wouldn't know, but it was awesome. We stayed up late and rocked out, and then got up early this morning to get back at it. So I'm feeling pretty jazzed.
Love it. I saw a guy, I wish I could remember his name, and I'm probably just absolutely not going to remember it, but you would definitely probably know this person. Anyhow, it doesn't really matter because I don't remember his name, but I got to see him live and he was really good. But anyway, so who did you go see? Just curious.
We went to see a band called the Arkells.
Okay. Yeah.
They're kind of I'd say they're like the Killers. They're kind of like the Killers. Uh, Very similar to that, like the Killers mixed with Dave Matthews Band. They're really they they brought down the house. It was great.
I love
Good
it,
show.
man. Yeah, I love going to live shows, especially if it's somebody that I really enjoy. I don't go typically if it's somebody that I'm half in, half out on. Yeah, so Ted, just for people that may or may not know who you are, just give us a little bit of background about who you are and what you've done in the home services space.
All right. Don't know. It's sometimes it doesn't feel like much, and sometimes it feels like a lot. So I got into the trades in 1996 as I went into a plumbing apprenticeship, and both my dad and my older brother were plumbers. And I didn't really want to be a plumber. I wanted to be a teacher, like a drama teacher or something like that. And but I went into plumbing so that I could attend university with my girlfriend at the time. And so, anyways, got into plumbing, and I haven't looked back since. In 1999, my dad and I started up a company and called EL Fox and Sons Plumbing and Heating Limited. And anyways, we with hopes that my brothers would join the company, we called it EL Fox and Sons after my dad. And none of my brothers did end up joining. And so my dad and I worked together, just the two of us, with the occasional helper until around 2012. In 2012, I purchased the final, like the remaining shares from my dad. And and then my wife and I started to look at growing the business so it was bigger, like bigger than just me out in the field and her in the office, because it takes a lot of time when you're the only person there answering the phones and things. And if only I knew how much more time it takes later after you've grown. But since then, we've happy to say that we've grown to about 100 staff, 100 employees, and we've expanded. We do plumbing, heating, cooling, and electrical now, which is pretty awesome. And we've done that in a very small market by most people's standards. So a little toot of the horn here. We serve a total between all the communities that we service of about 170,000 people. And so to be able to grow to where we were like, hey, this is pretty great. So that's us in a nutshell. That the big stuff with our company is we really wanted, like, the why changes over time. My why originally was I wanted to take a holiday. My why now is more like changing the industry, but in a way of allowing young families to essentially stay in these expensive markets and get a house and be able to raise a family. And I just know that if that's my focus, then the company will thrive and our customers will do well and all that, by being able to create these careers that allow, I shouldn't just say young people, but essentially tradespeople to stay and not have to move with the crazy costs of living that there are out there.
So, how does that make you feel that you're able to provide homes for people and paychecks that'll cover the expenses or maybe more than cover the expenses of daily living? That must make you feel pretty good.
Yeah, everything. I think everything has a tinge of selfishness in it. It does. Like it's sometimes you really have to dig through the weeds to find that to make sure you hold on to that positive goal that you're searching for, that thing. Because whenever you, I don't know your listener base, and that's fantastic. But if I'm talking to business owners, they would understand that everybody around you thinks that you're hiding secret bags of money in your drawers, right? They have that feeling. And hey, maybe there are some business owners out there who have figured that out, and they got these secret bags of money that they're just squirreling away in the fenders of their car. But most that I know, and I know quite a few, make a good living and they look after their family, but have a real nurturing need to grow and keep the company healthy. And to keep the company healthy, you have to keep your employees healthy. So there's like this, it's like a symbiotic relationship of everybody. Like we call it a win-win. Your customers have to be good, your employees have to be good, and the company will be good. I will bring it up regularly. Hey, look at what we're able to provide young people, look what we're able to provide. And that comes at a cost. And the cost is you have to charge the right amount of money to be able to provide those things to your employees. And so you're always in this constant battle of, why are we more money than this other competitor? And how can they do it cheaper? I said, they do it cheaper because they offer less. And it's not just that they offer less to the customer, but to the employees as well. And so anyways, that's been a long battle. That's just, and you had, I guess you said, how does it feel? I feel good that I've been stoic enough to keep that fight going in the steel skin against the negativity that comes with it, because the outcome is extremely positive for our community and the trades in general.
That makes sense. It is for my, and there are a lot of business owners that listen to this show. There are also a lot of people in the field. And I think it's important that what you brought up is important, because I think a lot of business owners don't explain that to their employees, that you've got nice uniforms and you've got nice vans and you've got nice iPads and all those things come at a price. And that's why you have to charge what you charge. You're not, like you said, you're not ripping the customer off and you're sitting somewhere with $1 gazillion in the bank while you're screwing everybody. And again, there could be some people out there that are doing that. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I believe that a service technician would much rather show up at a home in a nice van with a nice uniform on and with equipment like an iPad that works. It's not busted into 1,000 pieces or works some of the time. That just makes their life significantly easier. And I think it's just perspective. And if you could explain that to the employees and get them, I wouldn't even say bought into it, because they don't really need to buy into having a better place to work and to be able to function better. But a lot of times I know that you are up against, why do we charge more? And if you explain that to the employees, I'm not saying you're going to show them your whole balance sheet, but at the end of the day, if a lot of guys don't understand that when you guys have a recall, that costs the company 3, 4, sometimes $500 to ship that van out for a second time. Heaven forbid it be a third or a fourth. And a lot of guys just don't really understand that. They think it's just the gas to go out there, but they're missing the boat on all the other costs that are incurred with that second, third, or fourth trip.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I think it's so important that's not a worry, that for the techs, that it's not something they need to worry about. My books are always open. My people can look at them anytime they want, but I just think I stopped trying to convince people of it. Like we definitely have, what would you call it? Not projects, but we have like a work group, or we'll get together and we'll do a project together, like in a classroom project. and work on costings and things like that. So to give people an idea where the prices come from. But generally, it's I try not to give it too much attention, because I think even if it's all laid out and all explained, like even a lot of business owners and a lot of they don't fully grasp it. It takes a long time. Like it's a whole nother. It took me years to figure out my P&L properly and do those things right. And at the end of the day, you're trying to hit a 10% profit, 15% profit. Wouldn't that be amazing? That's what you're trying to hit. So you're not talking huge margins here, but so if you can just really focus on now, what is that value we're bringing to the customer, and what's the value we're bringing to our people? What are those values at? And if you make sure those are higher than everybody else, then the pricing makes sense, right? Like you can only afford to charge more if you're better. If you shouldn't say if you're better, but if you provide a higher value. And yeah, so that's been your original question was like, how does it make you feel? It makes me feel really good. Even I think it was 2 nights ago, I was sitting with my family and we were talking about this is awesome, because we were talking about a young, I would say young, but a young guy that works for us who's just able to get his mortgage on his first house. And it wasn't very many years ago that we're in this little pocket town, but we're about 5 hour drive from Vancouver. Vancouver's one of the highest cost of living places to purchase in the world, apparently. And the overflow from that is where we are. So our housing prices and stuff they've gone up crazily, to a point where the conversation in the area was like, young people, they will not be able to afford this unless they can, right? So that's what we're working on.
Yeah, that makes sense. So one of the things I think is vital, and for you to have 100 people inside of the company, that means that the culture in the company's got to be pretty solid, because people don't hang out for very long in a company that has not a very good culture. So how do you cultivate that inside of your company and keep that a positive thing where people want to come and work there?
It's a great question. And I don't want to say I'm my worst critic, but I probably am. Like, so culture is something that I always feel isn't good enough or isn't great or what. But to your point, it has to be decent for growth. Like it has to. And culture is who you are, right? It's who you are and how you show up. I would say the nicest way that, or the best way that we cultivate it, was creating our core values, which I highly recommend everybody to have. But more important than creating them is living to them. And I would say that a regular conversation I would have with my staff and my team members is for them to utilize those core values as a shield against negativity. So I won't bore you with our core values, but when I hear somebody's having trouble with a person or with an item or with something, I'm like, listen, everything we do hangs out within our core values and within our code of ethics. But if you just take those core values and something's outside, you need to hold that value and be like, hey, we're not hitting this. This is not a positive attitude thing, or we're not. And I said, and we will all follow suit and recognize that and jump on board. Same with if you're seeing something, maybe there's somebody's grumpy in the parking lot. Best thing you can possibly do is let them know, hey, this I don't want to take part in your negativity today. Like you need to be solution minded to work here, and that's I come to work with people who are solution minded. And by using it as a shield, you're not keeping people away. You're checking them, because we all bring our own stuff in, and so that's, I think, one of the best tool that I could give out to people for culture is really don't just make your values or your statement and stick it on the wall. Don't just get up in front of a group of people and spew it out there. Do those things, but as well, let people know how to use them. They are an actual tool. And I'd say probably maybe the most important tool in your company, because it will make people feel safe to work for you because they know what to expect every day.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I love that. That makes complete sense. So I want to ask you, I know that I've worked with And I've consulted with a lot of companies where it's a family company, father and son, maybe a brother, maybe more than that. That dynamic is very different than it is with someone who doesn't have family involved. And so I'd like for you to talk to me about, I'm sure there have been times that things were not going super smooth.
Okay.
Tell me about one of those times where, if a family business is listening, if a father or son or both are listening, what are some of the things that you had to overcome in that relationship, and how did you keep that? How did you keep it separate from your relationship with your father? Because I'm sure that can be affected.
You bet. So my dad and I, because we worked just the two of us, and then with a couple of the people in there, we got along really well. There was no, we didn't have any drama, so I was very lucky that way. And we each knew our roles. I was out getting the work done. He was mentor and doing a lot of office, and then would come out in the field. It was good. It worked well for a lot of years. Um, but later on, what as I grew later, like my dad still worked for me for a while, and he ended up having early onset Alzheimer's and dementia. And we found this out while he was at work. And what I found is family, all family. So I'm a person, I like to bring people together. I really like that. And so I have had my mom work for me, a sister work for me, a brother work for me, some of my kids, my wife works with me. Like it's like family's in there, but man, that is your problem. You can't make that you can't make your family drama ever overflow into the company. That's Nobody else deserves that. If you have family drama, it's got to stay out. Same with if you're working with your best friend, or you're going, yeah, that's just them. Like we're just going to work with them, even though they're a jerk. You have to protect your culture in that from that side of things. Some like life lessons in this, like in the business is my my brother came to work for me. One of my favorite people in the whole wide world. We worked together when we were younger on a big construction site. We worked for a year or two together, and but it was like he did not belong with the company, and the company did not belong with him. He came, he tried. It was an absolute not fit, not good for anybody, and it had to end. And that was just like you just have to be able to make those choices. You have to be able to recognize it and make those decisions based on the good of everybody that's there. So I would say that family dynamics can be one or the other. What I see more than anything with the companies that I speak to regularly is generally they let their family get away with murder or with more stuff. They're and everybody in the company knows it, watches it, sees it happen, and understands that it's happening, and nobody's happy about it. So you can absolutely work really well with family, but you have to treat the families the same as everybody else there.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. 100%. Sometimes I've worked with people before where they're treated sometimes worse. And I think because they're trying to make sure that people understand that they're not getting special treatment.
And that's the other thing is the yes, especially when the kids come to work. I see people like where yeah, they treat the kids or whatever like they're way harder on them than everybody else, and they because they have these expectations. And so I say you can absolutely navigate this. And the nice thing about having family, like the family that works for me, there's serious trust that goes beyond trust that you can just build in a working place. Depending, but we all have family that we know that there's some family we trust and some family we don't trust. So it's you has to be a smart hiring thing. Your business is not a charity; it's a business, right? You have to make sure it's mutual and it's beneficial for everybody, and and generally I've made sure that the family that I've hired in report to a different manager. They don't report to me directly. They report to another manager, and I still interact with them in that, but they have to stand on their own 2 feet. And also they need to be protected from me and my expectations of them as a brother, a father, I could say. So yeah, it's a very good point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's just it's always it's always an interesting dynamic, but it sounds like to me that your
Right.
perspective is pretty solid, one of the most solid I've heard. But to grow from now, give me an idea of when your real growth started to happen, when you went from, and I don't know the numbers, but let's say when a lot of people scale from 5 to 10 million, that's a tough road. 10 to 20 million is also, it's just a very different ball game. And there's, I think, if you're like a normal business owner, there have been times where you weren't sure if you were even going to make payroll.
Yeah, those are terrible times. I'm not laughing because I know there's probably a bunch of people out there struggling with that, especially these days. Yeah, no, that is something that's so. Hey, knock on wood, have not missed payroll yet, but sometimes that's come at like some real creative thinking as to how do we not miss payroll, right, over the years. So scaling, yeah. So as soon as I bought my dad out in 2012, the because he was anti advertisement, very much as we do word of mouth only, and that's it. And we were in a 51-49 partnership, right? So he had 51%, and if I wanted to advertise, he didn't. So the first thing I did is I put out an ad, and we started making money, which was cool because up to that point we had never done more than about $300,000 in a year, and we were always just breaking even, paying ourselves most of the time, but very low. And so, anyways, pretty quickly we scaled up. I think I don't know. It took us a year or so to break the $1 million mark, and then we've basically been growing at about 30%, roughly 30% per year since then. I would say that super dangerous part for me for Fox was breaking the 2 to 4 million mark, because around that I realize I'm old now, so inflation is different and everything, but it seems to me that around, if you're in a home services company, around that $2 million mark, somewhere in there is where you got to start hiring managers. It's right in there that you're probably got 10, 12 employees, 13 maybe, and you're like, okay, I need a field manager, I need this other manager. And for me, the danger there was like, yeah, I got that, I got a good manager in, but I didn't know how to cost properly and set my pricing right and figure those things out to make sure that, because I just thought if I pay him this amount of money, he's going to make me more than that by keeping people working like I was working. And it doesn't generate that way. And I took a high performing technician who's making me dollars in the field and moved him into a management role, which then, so you're taking positive and putting it into a cost. So those are, I know a lot of people, it's going to sound like what a dummy, but that was a lesson to learn that, and right in that area that you're adding managers. Then I would say around 12 or 13 million, somewhere in there. If we're just talking dollars, somewhere in that range, you start adding your second layer of managers where you have like your leadership team or your general managers, and then you've got managers that report to those managers. And so I'm not saying managers are the root of all evil, but when you are, I'm just going to say like non-educated, not that you need the education, but it's like when you don't know, you like basically every day I come to work, I'm running a bigger company than I've ever run in my life. And so sometimes you'll scale, you're okay, I need this leader over here. But then 7 or 8 months later, you realize that was the wrong move. And so around that 12, 13, $14 million mark, somewhere in there, we added some secondary level of managers. And once again, same kind of thing. You're inflating your cost, your overhead inflates, and your profits go down. or your profits might not go down, but your overhead inflates and your net profit goes down. So yeah, then all of a sudden you're having trouble making payroll again, even though you're doing more work than you've ever done. You've got all this like amazing management out there. You're doing all your leadership training, doing all the things right. But you want your org chart to be a bit like a Christmas tree, right? Like with your field staff here. But the idea is if your field staff is too large for the management you have, then your field staff feel unsupported. So your technicians will feel like they don't have anybody to talk to. So if you hire managers out first and bell out your middle so that you've got lots of support for your field staff, then your profits go away and you can't make payroll maybe or whatever you're going to do. So there's this juggling act there. So yeah, I would definitely caution people between when you're $1 to $2 million, that's a healthy company. You're making good dough, and I'm sure everybody who's there who's running with they got 2, 3, 4 techs with them, and they're running around doing everything. They're probably doing really well, and I love that time. That was a great time, and I'm not sorry that I didn't stay there. But when I see some people and they want to grow, I'm asking them, "What are you after, really?" Because if depending what you're after, it doesn't get easier and you might not make more money, but you can do a whole lot of good in the industry if you want to do this. Around that $10-12 million mark, it's another crazy one. It's almost like every $5 million jump that you do. And I believe personally, it's a management process that is the reason that the costing stuff gets crazy because you have to reinvent your company again with management to cover that section.
And so you mentioned making, and I think anybody listening to this can identify with making a bad hire, someone who you thought really was going to do a great job. How, at this point, hiring's a big problem. I shouldn't say a big problem in the trades. Hiring is a big conversation in the trades because there's either not enough people or everybody sucks or there's a whole list of things, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
could get
exactly.
into why I think people are saying that without calling out leadership or whatever. How do you now mitigate making some of those bad hiring decisions?
Right. Yeah, no, that's that's cool. Hire slow and fire fast, right? You like do more research, more get as much data as you can ahead of time, as much you can. And we still make bad choices because we all get desperate. You're like, man, we really need this person, and this guy seems great, or that girl seems great. Let's go. More data. Is it okay? Can I talk about who hired for a second?
Yeah, please.
Do you mind?
No,
Okay,
not at
just
all.
I think it's super relevant to it's obviously relevant to the hiring question, but we had a manager. So we use who hired maybe a little differently than most people. We're going to really get into a whole bunch of other things, but one thing we were using it for is building profiles on all of our people to figure out their flight risk, their happiness, their like all those things. Like we were looking at it and going, okay, now from a promotion standpoint within the company, like who should we be working with? So anyways, long story short, I'll get into here. There's a manager that we had on staff who checked everybody's boxes. We were like, this guy, we all loved him, and he's great, hard worker, everything's good, he's happy, just nailing it. And my wife Sue, she's like very analytical with a lot of this stuff, and she kept coming to me because I'm like, I'm going to take this guy to this training, I'm going to take him here, and she's like, I don't think you should be doing that. And it's like, why? And she's like, well, because like our Who Hire report shows that he's a flight risk and that he's unhappy. And I'm like, there's no way though. Like it's got it wrong. Because like we can't all be wrong. We can't. And so I was taking him, he was the person I was putting in. And then all of a sudden, he turned in his notice and was like, oh, thanks very much. I'm heading to a different industry. And it was like right after flying him out to another city to go through. And so it was one of those moments where this $100,000 a year manager, just dumping resources in because he's got all these skills, and had been with us for he had also been with us for a while. Like this, he's been with us well over a year. And so that Who Hire had nailed it. Like it nailed it. If I had just looked at what the data brought back to me on this person instead of what my gut and heart, and you got to keep the humans in it. Like you and I are here having a conversation because there needs to be humans here, but don't ignore that data. So that's like when you ask about hiring and that, yeah, take all the data you can, look at it, and utilize it. Because had I utilized the data that was right in front of me, that we honestly paid to get, not only would I don't even like I would have saved the money that I spent sending this fellow around and doing those things, but more importantly than that, all of those resources would have gone to another more deserving or more beneficial to the company person on staff rather than that person. Do I know if it'll always get it right? I don't know, but so far it's nailed it for that stuff. Sorry, shameless plug. Who Hires pretty awesome.
Well, it's interesting because one of the things that you're right, the data is so dialed in, and we've done so much research through the Nexstar network and utilizing the companies in there and the employees that it is as accurate as anything that you're going to find, more accurate in my opinion. But what it does do, to speak to what you're talking about, is it helps you to take the human emotion like everybody had, because they love the guy and ignored the data. And so having that data helps you to not want to stick around peg in a square hole just because you like the individual.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I guarantee you put him in anybody else's company, it would have been a similar thing where this person's performing, department's doing well, like all the things, all points north. Everything was like, this guy's awesome. Let's keep him. Let's good. And there was one canary in the coal mine, and I shameless plug out to my wife Sue. She legitimately was just like, I don't think you should be doing it. And it was a regular talk. I don't know. Have you looked? I'm like, yes, I've seen the Who Hire stuff, but look what he's doing. And it's now on camera and audio. I was wrong. My wife was right, and that is the truth right there.
Well, that's fantastic. And I think one of the reasons, and we'll jump off this topic in just a moment, one of the reasons that I believe in what we're doing at Who Hire is because I know the problem that it solves with arguably the largest problem in the industry, which is finding good people. And I think I think we're gonna be a household name at somewhere here pretty shortly. So really grateful for that. Appreciate that. So so when you're when you are hiring, do you use it for everybody that comes through the hiring process at this point?
No, not at this point. So that's our next phase, is to roll it. We wanted to really use it for all of internal, like looking at all the people that we have and what we're doing there. And then our next phase is to get it tied in everywhere and just go for it with it, right?
Yeah,
Really utilize it.
Yeah, it makes sense. The data is pretty nuts. So where do you want to scale to? I'm just curious. If you're at 100 people now, I don't know what that number is. What's the and it doesn't sound like it's a monetary thing, but would you like to see 500 people underneath the company, or what does that number look like?
Mm. That's not a yeah, that hasn't been a trackable metric for me, like as a goal as to how many people. What I want is sustainability, and I think that you need growth for sustainability. I think that if you don't need mega growth. Like 30% per year over year is it's a lot, especially without any outside input, private equity groups or anything like this. just us growing, right? But it's a lot. Looking at the market share analysis and everything else, like we could keep scaling like we have been for a long time. Right now, what our BHAG is, big hairy audacious goal, is based around memberships, like our company memberships, because we have our flywheels all based around it. When a customer signs up on a membership with us, because we don't just give them away, right? Like they cost something. When they get on membership with us, that really closes a loop that tells us that we had to give great service. And so people don't buy a membership without great service and like high value. And they definitely don't buy it if your technicians and office staff aren't talking about it. So if they do buy it, that tells us that all those things are coming together and those people want us back in their home. So we have a BHAG to have 9,000 memberships, which in our small area could be big, hairy, and audacious, but that's what we're after. And I think we've got 8 years left to hit that. We're currently at 2,000, so we want to get 7,000 more. And so I could crack that down as to how many technicians that'll take to service those people. I could probably figure that out. Um, but it basically puts us at 5 times the size we are now, or 4 times the size we are now.
All right. So I'm really glad you brought that up. So do you all, at what point is the membership being offered to the customer? Are CSRs also offering memberships? Is it just the technicians? Is it a combination of both?
Okay, I'm going to go like a 98% of the time kind of thing, because sometimes there's always things that happen in the periphery, but 98% of the time the membership is offered at the end of the job, because you don't. A good friend of mine in the industry, Dan Fries, he told me you don't want to propose to somebody before you go on a first date, right? Like you don't want to show up and be like, hey, you want a membership? Do you want to lock in with me for a year and you don't even know what I'm like? So you got to go show them before you present it. So we try not to do the over the phone sales and that kind of thing. It's once we've gone and worked for the people and we've gone there and we can talk to them about what it is and what it entails and how it works with their home, and they've been able to like actually have us in their house and feel what it's like to work with Fox, then we'll talk about it. So it's 98% technician or comfort advisor in the home talking to them about those things. If somebody calls us up and says, I want a membership, yes, we'll do it, but we'll show them what it entails first. But does that make sense? Yeah, it feels strange to just offer a membership and link in with somebody that you don't even know.
Yeah, I know there's different schools of thought on it. I know that some folks will use that opportunity if the customer's got if their water heater is busted and you're going to have to replace it. They could use that opportunity to say, if you, as a CSR, if you want, join our membership, we're going to waive the whatever fee you want to call it, and there's different ways to position it, and I think it both could work for sure. So what is your how do you feel about training? Meaning, how often do you train with your CSR? Maybe not you, but whoever how you do that, and your technicians. What's your school of thought on that?
So I think we started this conversation. I said I wanted to be a teacher
That's
when I
right.
went into plumbing. But so we're heavily based in training. So we have a training center here, a full classroom. We have a thing we call the traintainer, which is a container with set up with furnaces and air conditioners in it that we train in, and that training it's not just hands-on skills training, it's service training, call center training. So like training is out the wazoo here. This past year, like I'd say the last 12 to 18 months, like lead counts have been down for people. The industry generally is like slower. So we have slowed down on our in-house training. But that being said, we didn't stop the training where it's needed. So I'm constantly taking technicians away. Right now, I've got one guy who works with me And he's just like, man, I need to know about furnaces and that. So him and I meet in the mornings. We come a few times a week. We meet in the mornings. We rip old furnaces apart. We train up. Like it's it. So really, one of the best places you can do that. I won't put this out there though. For any of the technicians that are listening, if I can, I just be
Yeah.
a big brother right now. Spoken from a tech to a tech. Stop asking for more training. Just stop it. Because no matter how much training you get, you're going to continually think and feel that you don't have enough training. You need more training. They're like, that's one of the most asked questions that I get is why don't we have more training? And it's like, legitimately, I know my training budget and I guarantee you it is higher than anybody in the Valley. Like the amount of dollars and time that we put into training is insane, but it's for a good cause. What I would say is take the training your company offers, do those things, but have an accountability for yourself as to what you're going to get out of it. Before you start that training, what am I going to leave with this? And then follow it up with your YouTube videos, your TikTok videos, whatever you're going to learn online, reading. Like all of us old school guys, we did it with reading and watching and learning. And training is not going to go away, but I've found definitely for some of the younger techs coming in, like I'm going to say below 35, that there can be this feeling of like imposter syndrome where it's I'm not ready to go do this because I haven't been trained on it, or I was trained on it last year and I don't remember it anymore. You got to take responsibility for yourself. You're out there as a professional. You do the research and learn what you got to do as well as taking the training that your companies are providing for you. And if you're a business owner, train your people. Don't run away from it. Train it. And but once again, give them some form of accountability to it as to I at the end of this training, I expect you to be walking out of the room with this knowledge. If you don't feel you have it, I'm going to stay here longer and make sure that you do. Right. So you have that just so that people aren't there for a donut. Right.
Yeah. So do you do most of the training in-house then, or do you also in addition to that, do you also bring other outside influences in?
Yeah. Both. For the past 7 years or 8 years, we've had a full-time in-house trainer. And we did that way smaller than we should have done it, but it's been valuable. This year, like I said, in the last 12 months, that trainer ended up moving into a management role with a group of technicians to do like SWAT team, like they're working together in a really confined way, which is awesome. But on top of that, we also do away training. So we go to Next Star trainings. We went to 2 weeks ago, I took a couple technicians down to Arkansas, went to the Ultimate Tech Academy. So next week we're in a Daikin training. Like we're just when the opportunities present themselves, if it fits your business, get there. I feel like I'm preaching, but if you own the company, go to the training. Like I know it's a drain on your time and energy, but and if you can't go, then have somebody you can that can go with your people, and not to make sure that they're learning the stuff, but be there to have the conversations after the class and in on lunches about what that training's bringing up and how you can apply it within your business. Because I find that the most powerful things I've received from trainings is the conversations that I have at dinner afterwards with my people. Yeah, it's you're just you're opening up the mind, which opens up conversations, and you should explore those.
Yeah. What do you, so in terms of like soft skills training, how much role play do you do? Is that something that you incorporate pretty often? Do you have people stand up in front of everybody and do it? What's your view on that?
Yeah, we don't role play at all. We skill practice.
Okay.
So it was determined a while ago that role playing was not a word we were going to use for whatever reason. So it's skill practice. Yes, skill practice is integral to what we do. And so for if you're Nexstar, you're using service system. If you're service roundtable, you think it's something else. There's all these different styles of systems you can use, and eventually, like you kind of mold them and make them your own. Like we've been doing it long enough. We have a blend that's the Fox service system, And that's just a go-to. So if we do see somebody that's maybe not, they're having trouble converting, or their review count is down, or whatever those things are, we can come in and do a 2 hour or 1 hour skill practice session and go through these specific areas that we're going to work with. But yeah, skill practice and soft skills is, to me, this is the hard part. We are a customer service company. We're not before a sales company, before a mechanical company. You got to get it straight. It's your customers that you're there for. So you have to be a customer service company before anybody will buy anything from you, or before they'll let you do any work. So if you set yourself up like we're this like rough, tough pipe fitting company, you're going to miss the mark. If you set yourself up like we're going to go out and make the biggest sales on the planet, you're going to set yourself up not for long-term success. If you set yourself up like customer service, how do we stand in front of a customer and have them want us to still be there in 5 minutes? You have to do soft skills. You have to. Yeah. Massive amount of training there.
Yeah, 100%. And that goes the same with the CSRs too, because people can feel if your CSR is having a rough day and their spirits down, or they have even a negative attitude, people can feel that right through the phone.
You can hear it. You can hear a smile. You can
Yeah.
absolutely hear a smile.
Yeah. 100%.
And yeah, so CSRs, DSRs, I think the DSRs have, I don't say the hardest job, because I think every job is hard, but the amount of juggling of people's emotions and time, and between the technician and the customer and the company, like those skills of being able of practicing what to say, what works, how to be organic with it, it's huge. Like you need those skills.
Yeah, I agree. I want to ask you, what's an offense that without a doubt requires you to fire an individual? What has to happen? What are some of those things that is just a non-negotiable for the company?
No, that's an awesome question. I actually have a call coming up after this that's literally about non-negotiables. So I was like, oh, I didn't know you were gonna ask this. But man, okay, so blatant theft, vandalism, physical abuse. I would say verbal abuse, but so yes, that can be, but dependent on what it is and how it comes across. So I do think most of those things require an HR audit, like an HR 360 review, because sometimes you can offend somebody by saying something that wasn't deemed um, intentional. But theft, physicality, physical abuse of some kind, vandalism, and I would say theft comes in the form of not just like taking staplers from the office, but material theft. Time theft is a pretty big one. If it goes on for long periods of time, that's one that, to me, once you've broken trust, if there's no way to reestablish the trust, then that's it. But I fire too slow. I fire too slow at Fox, because I would like to work with people to see if we can't get through whatever it is. But there are some things where no, we cannot come back from this, and then it's over. But I think that the majority of times when people get fired is generally that they were not pipped properly. Like you have a process of like a 3-strike rule, although at any point in those strikes you can come out, but okay. Sorry, I'm rambling.
No, you're good.
My analogy is this. We live on a pirate ship, or not a pirate ship, but we live on a ship of some kind. This company is a ship. We're all going in the same direction. And what I like to say to my managers and to the people who I manage is, listen, if you start not pulling your weight on the ship or trying to cause a mutiny or something, the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to go for a walk around the ship together. And as we're walking, I'm going to show you this thing and say, hey, see that's the plank. You don't want to see that. So just know that's there when people aren't on board. And if the next time we're having a conversation about there was some kind of other, I'm not following your system, I'm not this, I'm not that, is I'm going to show you the plank. We're going to walk over and we're going to look at it. And you're going to decide whether that's you want off this ship or not. The third time you're going to walk to the end of that plank and you're going to have a look. And this is now where I'm deciding whether you can come on the boat, back on the boat, or off the boat. And then the fourth time you're not. Now, what the reason I put this out there like that to most of my people is that most people, when they see the plank, don't want to go there. So they're willing to correct whatever that thing was. They just want to be on the ship. So they're willing to correct it. Once they've been out on the plank and they get out there, it's like now it's like there's two sides that we're both thinking about this now. And they have to make a conscious decision to get back on the boat. Like I'm changing something to get back on here. Third, nobody ever gets to the third time. I shouldn't say ever, but it's most people don't get to the third time because they usually correct completely or they quit because they recognize that this is not for me or this is for me. And I think I bring this up this way because if you don't follow a process like that, what you get to is you never show people the plank. They get worse and worse and worse and worse. They don't know that they're bad. They think the company is bad. You're both living in these weird things and you just hear nattering out there until finally the manager gets told, you have to fire that person because did you know what they did? But had you talked to them 6 months ago and said, hey, if you keep on this path, you're going to end up walking off this ship. You need to stop what you're doing right now. Doing that corrects almost everything. And most people who do not belong in the culture will absolutely leave on their own. And that's what we find is we don't conduct a lot of firings here. We do have people that leave. And although I like those people, I'm not sorry for any of them that have left because I think that we weren't the right company for them and they weren't right for us. And I think that they'll be happy somewhere else.
Yeah, that makes sense. So can you describe maybe a bit more detail about time theft? How do you define, because I think that could be defined in a bunch of different ways. So when you say that, kind of what sticks out?
Okay. Not say taking lunches, but not clocking them out would be a real easy one for time theft. It can also be taking a job, completing the job, driving somewhere, parking, and just letting the clock run for a while, which is silly. I'd rather be at home than that. I don't ever look at it as just lack of efficiency because that's a different thing. That's something that you can work on. But when a person is legitimately doing something to clock hours or to, if you have, let's say you have 7 install crews all doing similar kinds of work, but this one crew somehow gets double overtime twice a week every week. And you're like, that's weird, man. Like, how is that? And then you look at it and you're like, that's strange. Like every Tuesday and Thursday, they seem to work till 7 p.m. Let's look at these jobs. What's weird about these jobs? And you start finding patterns. Those types of things, once again, are very easily corrected with the conversation. Just like, hey, look, here's you guys and here's everybody else. And we either need to fix efficiency or you are not approved for this kind of time. You're not. But by being on top of it, you can stop it. But a person who just is blatantly doing time theft, altering their timesheets or clocking in funny to just get more time, I don't think that's a thing that you can come back from because that's legitimately you're just stealing at that point.
And it's a conscious decision.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree. I appreciate you explain that because there could be many different ways of looking at that. Could be inefficiency is one of those things where you can improve efficiency, but then I guess some people could take advantage of maybe if it's overlooked. But anyhow, yeah, that makes complete sense. That makes sense. I don't know if it's okay with you, Ted. If there's somebody listening and they've heard something that you've said today and they'd like to reach out to you, what would be the best way to do that?
I would say email me. It's
Okay.
Ted at foxandsons.ca. Yeah, I'm happy to give my number out too. I just don't know if you want me to say it over here. It's
No,
never
absolutely.
changed.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you can give me a call, or text is usually better, just because a lot of times I'm on the phone, but it's 250-309-7405. And that's been my cell phone since I was a teenager. Hey, don't lose it.
Well,
But yeah, no, give me a shout anytime. I'm super interested in helping people if it's helping out the industry a bit. And I think if we're all having a little bit of positivity, putting positivity into the world, we're doing the right thing.
I would agree. Ted, this has been a fantastic conversation. I greatly appreciate you spending some time with me today. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate you.
My pleasure, Corey. Thanks for doing this. And yeah, we'll talk to you again.
You got it. Thank you.